everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of T Watches a Scary Movie. My name is T, and we are talking some scary movies. I appreciate y'all tuning in again for the second time this week. We had a new episode that just went up yesterday that featured my good friend Tyler of the Silver Screen Breakdown. We had a very spoiler-filled chat about Spiral from the Book of Saw, and we actually have part 2 of that conversation coming up for y'all tomorrow, June 24th. So this is only the second of 3 episodes that y'all are getting this week, which is pretty awesome. But if you want to get the alerts for when those episodes are going up and making sure you can catch the premieres at the same time as everybody else, obviously you can watch it later, just going to YouTube and stuff. But if you want to catch the premiere, new episodes go up every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. All you have to do is go and subscribe to youtube.com/C/Theron Reynolds Scary Movie. Again, that's youtube.com/C/Theron Reynolds Scary Movie. Get subscribed to our page, and again, you will get the alerts for when we're doing our premieres of our episodes and any other videos that I choose to upload. And beyond that, you know we got some fun stuff in our Facebook group. If you get subscribed to the T Watches the Scary Movies Facebook group, which is facebook.com/group/T Scary Movie. Again, facebook.com/group/T Scary Movie. You'll find out when we are doing all of our watch parties. We usually do a watch party every Wednesday after the new episode. It's usually 1 or 2 movies from what we talked about in the episode. And then we have fun conversations throughout the week about other things that are all scary related. For example, they just put up the new Candyman trailer, the latest trailer for the new Candyman movie coming out at the end of August. It looks so damn good. So excited to see that. Just put that up in the group today. So yeah, we have some great times. You got to subscribe to the Facebook group to find out all about that. So folks, while we're in between a lot of new movies coming out, because man, the summer of 21 has been very nice to us with all the horror that we are getting over it here. We got Candyman coming. We got Fear Street coming. We got the new Escape Room movie coming. We got a lot coming out here, but I figure we might as well get into what I am calling the summer of horror. The summer of horror. So we are talking 3 fun summer-themed movies here. And I guess they're not all summer-themed, but they're close enough, though. They are very much close enough. And tonight, we are talking I Know What You Did Last Summer, Piranha 3D, and Sleepaway Camp 2, which I know a lot of you are wondering, why are we doing Sleepaway Camp 2? Why not Sleepaway Camp 1 to start off with and then work our way through the rest of the sequels? But here's the thing. I'm not the biggest fan of the original Sleepaway Camp. And not only that, Sleepaway Camp 2 especially. 3 is really good as well, but especially Sleepaway Camp 2 is so far and wide different from the original film. It's kind of like the difference between Friday the 13th and then all the sequels as well too. That's one of the best ways to really describe it. We know who the killer is, we know their motivations, and now we're just focused on that killer. It's no mystery, because I don't know if that really worked that well in the original film. So I said, no, screw it. We're sticking with Pamela Springsteen. We are doing parts 2 and part 3. So that's where we're starting off here with the Summer of Horror. We got some more fun stuff coming next week. But let's get right into it, because we actually just got done watching I Know What You Did Last Summer before this new episode, because I decided, you know what, we're going to get all these movies in. So we actually watched I Know What You Did Last Summer just a couple hours ago actually here. So let's talk about this. So I Know What You Did Last Summer, I'm sure everybody heard about. It came out back in 1997. And funny enough, it was written by Kevin Williamson, who everybody should really recognize that name, because he is the guy that is responsible for writing Scream, Scream 2, The Faculty, Cursed, Teaching Mrs. Tingle, Dawson's Creek, amongst a lot of other stuff. Like, the man is so good at writing horror and has made a great job of it over the course of his entire career here. So I'm super excited to get into this one here, because I Know What You Did Last Summer actually kind of sets itself apart from a lot of the other projects that he's done. some of you might not know that I Know What You Did Last Summer is actually based on a 1973 novel that was by Lois Duncan. So it is actually a book adaptation. But here's the thing. They have some very, very big differences from the book to this movie. Obviously, I'm sure after the success of Scream, because you have to think about it. Scream came out in 1996, and after the double dose Wes Craven brought to us from Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Scream, I think a lot of studios who were looking into horror, and especially slasher flicks, were looking to do something new and something different. And what's so interesting about that is it's a night and day difference from like Scream to I Know What You Did Last Summer. As kids, I'm sure we just looked at it as another movie with a group of kids getting murdered by somebody, and that's your story. But I Know What You Did Last Summer could not be further, like, as far as the on the other end of the spectrum from Scream than anything. It is so different. Scream is obviously, it's a parody, okay? It's them making fun of horror movies, and especially slasher movies, and all that shit that goes with it, honestly. And that was what was so refreshing, because Scream treated the audience as, okay, you all know all this, you know how slasher movies work, so you can work out a lot of this yourself, but it's fun to get to that end point, finding out that Billy and Stu are the killers, and their motivations behind everything. I Know What You Did Last Summer is not that. I Know What You Did Last Summer, funny enough, is still the old school slasher films there. It's one of those older ones to where we don't know who the killer is. We're trying to figure out their motives and intentions. It's a mystery. It's a slow burn as well, too. And that is a big thing about this film as well, is that, again, it came out around the same time Scream did, just a year after Scream came out. Not even a year, if I remember correctly. But you have a young cast. You have somebody like Jennifer Love Hewitt, who is having a rise in fame at the same time that like Neve Campbell was for Scream, and there's a lot of similarities there. And it's just very interesting to see the way that these films are differently done. Now, the story of I Know What You Did Last Summer is a group of friends who are all finishing up with school and ready to move on in the next chapter in their lives, accidentally end up hitting somebody with their car, and in an effort to protect their futures, decide to dispose of the body, decide they're going to just dump it into the ocean and let things happen the way that they are. And unfortunately, a year after this incident, they all began receiving threats from somebody who says that I know what you did last summer. They're aware of the past of these characters and begin terrorizing them to basically get to a very, very gruesome conclusion here. Now, again, the novel definitely changes up aspects of this story. And there's stuff that I didn't even catch myself in this movie until sometime over the last 10 years that adds actually a little bit more to the enjoyment of it. These are not self-aware characters, okay? We have to be clear, is that it's hard to look through this film independently, and I keep bringing Scream up, but it really is hard, because if you saw I Know What You Did Last Summer at the same time I did, Scream's fresh in your mind. It's stuck there. And Scream brought us very realistic teenagers. Very realistic kids. The way they talk, the way they act, all of that together, Whereas I Know What You Did Last Summer is very, very much, again, it's written. It's a movie is the best way to put it. These are not real kids. And so our group of kids, played by Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Ryan Philippe, and Freddie Prinze Jr., make up our core group. And it's not really that big of a cast, honestly. I Know What You Did Last Summer here. Again, God, I'm trying to think of a way to actually even come about this here. These kids are all being terrorized, and as they slowly work through this very, very small cast, they're again trying to work out the motivations of this killer and why this is all happening. And we're over the 10-year rule, so obviously I can definitely look into spoilers and things like that. But the idea is that our fisherman, so our killer, who is Ben Willis, basically Ben Willis murdered a man at the beginning of the movie who was basically responsible for the death of his daughter. Okay, so that's the idea. Is that again our killer here? Our killer Ben Willis murdered this man David at the beginning of the movie due to causing the death of Ben's daughter. And pretty much right after Ben gets done murdering this guy David, the group of kids hit Ben and kill him. And what is so ingenious about this story is the fact that our killer, Ben Willis, like usually our killers are pretty unhinged. They don't really have much of a way of motive here. They're not that smart or anything like that. But in this film, the idea is that Ben Willis survives getting hit by Jennifer Love Hewitt and her friends in their car, and basically spends the next year looking into all of their lives, like seeing what they're doing, the kind of people that they are, and then a year later decides that he's going to murder them all to basically help keep his secret, but also as revenge for them hitting him and leaving him for dead. And it's just so interesting because we have to consider again, the killer just murdered somebody. Like literally the whole crux, the whole like motivation of this film is that our killer had already murdered somebody, and unfortunately just by happenstance these kids accidentally hit our killer, and that's where this grudge comes from. And he spends the next year playing mind games with all of them. And it's actually pretty fucking awesome. And I remember as a child not being big on this film because, again, it didn't work like Scream. There were less deaths. It wasn't as terrorizing as I thought it was. But now to watch it in a completely different light and understand how the film is supposed to be, it really is. It's supposed to be another slasher flick in the long line of ones we had back in like the 70s and the 80s and everything like that as well too. And it actually works really, really well. Now there are parts about it that don't work great. For example, Ryan Philippe's Barry character is just the worst piece of shit. Like in a lot of these horror films, like we always get an asshole character in a lot of horror movies, but man, Barry is so unlikable. He is absolutely unlikable. I don't know if that's Ryan Philippe or if that's the writing, but either way, not likable in the least bit. Julie is annoying as shit as well too. Helen, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, is kind of like the only character of the four that I think we really can like. Part of that's because we all love Sarah Michelle Gellar. Sarah Michelle Gellar is fantastic in everything that she really does, but the other characters are written in a way that they're just not really endearing. And it's hard to take enjoyment out of like watching these characters interact with each other. Now, when it comes to the kills and the blood and all that stuff, this is not really a gory movie. There are some over the top deaths in this, especially when Johnny Galecki from Roseanne and Big Bang Theory and everything, who gets catches a hook in a very very unfortunate way here. So I mean, there are some over the top elements to it, but this is really not meant to be this big gore fest. Again, the scares are supposed to come from the pursuit of the killer with these characters than it really is from like, oh my god, they got their guts ripped open and things like that either. And it's interesting because if you go back and watch the trailers for I Know What You Did Last Summer, it's very clear that there was probably direction from the studio like, say, hey, cut this trailer to make it look like it's the next Scream. And it's not. It's not the next Scream in the least bit. But it's still a lot of fun. And all of this is taking place over July 4th. 1 year, and then moving on to the next year. So it really does embody, it's a hot summer. Murders are up in the summer as well, because they always say, oh, there's a correlation between like the heat and murders happening and everything as well too. This is a really good film. The only thing is that, again, it can be off-putting, honestly, if you're expecting your more meta slasher that we get these days, to where characters are smarter, they know the tropes, they know how to protect themselves, things like that. This is a film that would have done perfectly, decades before it was actually made. And the sequel that we're going to be talking about next week, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, kind of leans into that, because the sequel then becomes the typical horror movie that we would expect in a slasher film, back in the late 90s and everything like that. But this one keeps the mystery up. There is some good world building in this as well too. Again, like I said, it took me 2 decades. To to actually get a lot of the motivation of the killer himself and exactly what was going on. Maybe I'm just an idiot, but I missed, again, the whole idea that he murdered somebody else at the beginning of the movie, and it was all just an accident, these kids hitting him and everything that subsequently happened. But it's still a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Very different from the other films around this time we were watching. And definitely one that you want to check out, because I do think you'll look at it through a different lens if you were to look at it now versus the way that you saw it back then as well, too. And I want to say, because I was obsessed with the novel, because, again, it's like, oh, it's so cool. I can kind of read the movie and everything like that. I want to say that Ray ends up being a killer or something like that, but I don't remember for sure. I definitely don't remember for sure who ended up being the actual killer there. But that's I Know What You Did Last Summer. Let's talk Piranha 3D. It's so interesting because, like, I Know What You Did Last Summer is adapted from an old school novel, and Piranha 3D is definitely a remake of the original 1978 horror classic Piranha that was directed by Joe Dante of Gremlins fame, by the way, I should add. And I know Piranha's set during spring break. I do. But it looks like summer. It looks like it could be such a summer movie, and that's why we're going in and talking about it. The story to this here is very simple. An underground trimmer releases hundreds of prehistoric carnivorous piranhas into a local lake, and our sheriff must join together with a band of scientists to find out what's happening and save her town. That is Piranha 3D. Now, I'll be honest. When this film came out, I had not seen the original Piranha. I knew the story, knew about it, so like I didn't need that much more to go off of to understand what this movie was going to be about and what to expect, except to know that it was going to be this overly bloody, overly gory horror film that probably would only take certain elements from the original film and adapt that. And man, this movie is a lot of fun. It is a blast to watch, and even more so in 3D. Written by Peter Goldfinger and Josh Stolberg, writing partners, who wrote another recent film that we've talked about just a little bit. You might have heard of, called Spiral. And directed by Alexandra Aja, who, if you don't know who that guy is, that is the man behind the remake of The Hills Have Eyes. He also did High Tension, or Hot Tension, as it's pronounced now. Directed this film. And what a great cast that he was able to put together for this movie as well. We got Elizabeth Shue, Adam Scott, Jerry O'Connell, Ving Rhames, Dina Meyer, Christopher Lloyd, Richard Dreyfuss. Like, this film is absolutely stacked. And there is no additional story for you to get. It's not like they were adding some kind of huge backstory to everything that's going on. Simply put, under this lake, there was a fissure that was opened by a recent trimmer. Piranhas come out. They're eating everybody. Time to save everybody that's caught in the lake. That is as complicated as this story gets. Realistically, you are watching to see all the deaths that are occurring, the body parts getting bit, like the people getting cut in half. Like, it is just a gore fest. And when you consider the other films that our director has done, again, I mentioned High Tension. I also mentioned The Hills of Eyes, which are both very gory films and everything. It's hard to believe that Piranha steps it up a notch. Piranha definitely is not itself a straight horror film. This is absolutely a horror black comedy for sure, because there are a lot of comedic elements in this movie for sure. And that's a lot of the fun of it too, is that when you add levity to something that's going to be over the top, super disgusting, super bloody, super violent, it makes it easier for your audience to embrace it and watch it. And I remember when this came out, this was in my phase of thinking that Adam Scott was like one of the coolest guys in Hollywood. And granted, I still do think Adam Scott is cool as hell, man. Parks and Rec, love that guy. Step Brothers, so good. But back in 2010, it's like, cool, all right, let's put Adam Scott in way more horror movies and everything, because the guy can play that leading role. Love him to death there. And he's not even the lead of the movie. This is absolutely Elizabeth Shue's film. Absolutely Elizabeth Shue's film, playing our sheriff who's trying to get a hold on everything that's going on. And it's fun to see Richard Dreyfuss and Christopher Lloyd getting these roles, because Richard Dreyfuss, especially being in it, is kind of giving a throwback to Jaws. He's not playing the same character at all there. He's actually our opening death scene and everything in here. But the idea of bringing in like these iconic actors and then offing them within just a few minutes is so awesome. But the bulk of the story revolves around the son of our sheriff, Julie, played by Elizabeth Shue. That's her son Jake, played by Stephen McQueen, and who basically gets hired to drive around or show around a porn director played by Jerry O'Connell, who's trying to get some shoots done over the spring break weekend there and get some good porn together. And unfortunately, they end up getting themselves stranded right in the middle of everything that's going on. Meanwhile, during the spring break festivities on the other side of the lake, the sheriff and her crew are trying to protect everybody who's now being attacked by all the ravenous piranhas. Folks, there is no more story. There is no more story. It would not serve me to really talk about story when it comes to this movie itself. We are there to, again, watch all these moments of people fighting piranhas and then everything that goes wrong while they're trying to do it. And it happens so much in this movie. Again, I've said it before. Limbs, body parts are ripped off, including dicks. People get torn up by boat motors and everything. People get cut in half by cables. Like, it is a gory film. Would not recommend watching on a full stomach by any means. But it also has Gianna Michaels, who was the GOAT for me for a long time. So good to see her in an actual screen role and everything, even though that role is to get half of her body eaten by piranhas and everything. But the CG in it is actually a lot of fun. The soundtrack in it is great as well. Shout outs to my man Swayze, who contributes, I think it's Get You Home. Yeah, I want to say it's Get You Home. That's on this on the soundtrack of this film, which is a great song as well too. Honestly, it's like, I wish I had more to say. I really wish I had a lot more to say about it, but it, like, you're watching the film because you know what to expect. This is, again, even different from I Know What You Did Last Summer, where there's a lot of mystery and a lot of questions that we need answered to us by everything that's going on in the film. But it's really not that. It's not a dumb movie by any means. It's just, it is a summertime popcorn horror flick that you're gonna have so much fun watching, and that is even better in 3D. The less I can say about the sequel, the better. The sequel is terrible. Piranha 3DD. It is god awful, so bad. But check Piranha out though. Piranha 3D is so much fun. You do have to buy physical media, because actually this is one that has been pulled from a lot of streaming services, so it's actually going to be hard to track it down on your streaming services now, which thankfully I had it on streaming and everything on Vudu and Amazon before they lost the rights. So I'm very happy to have that back there for to show y'all later tonight. But that's Piranha 3D. Let's talk about Sleepaway Camp 2. So, I mentioned already that I didn't really want to talk about the original Sleepaway Camp because I actually kind of find it boring. I find it dull. It's just not really for me. I think that the second film and the third film definitely added a lot more to this series of what was missing in the first place. If you recall, at the end of the original film here, the idea is that a group of counselors and campers are being murdered. They have no idea who's actually behind it until the end of the film. We find out that it's actually Angela, who is actually Peter, who is our killer, who has been going around murdering everybody at the camp. And that's all you really need to know about Sleepaway Camp 1, because Angela's our killer. Angela is actually Peter, who is a man, and there you go. But as we move into Sleepaway Camp 2, Sleepaway Camp 2 goes 5 years later. The idea is that Angela is now working as a counselor, murdering misbehaving teenagers and other counselors back at this camp. And that is a welcome change, because here's the thing. Sleepaway Camp 2, Sleepaway Camp 3 is completely over the top. We know who the killer is. There is no mystery about it. We are watching because we are rooting the killer on, okay? If you recall, the whole idea behind like films like Nightmare on Elm Street is that we're really following our killer as the films go on in the series. So maybe the first three movies that really revolve around Nancy and Jesse we're really following our protagonist. But honestly, as we get later in the series, we're watching Nightmare on Elm Street for Freddy Krueger. But the thing is that we can't commit to Freddy. Our focus in those films is still going to be all the teenagers that Freddy is going around and killing. Whereas here in Sleepaway Camp, we push that to the side. Like, yeah, we're following these counselors and these campers, but they suck. All of them suck. All of them are terrible. None of them are really our protagonists or hero characters. Angela, our killer, is both our protagonist and our antagonist, because there are times throughout these films to where Angela actually makes some choices to let some people go, let them off easy, things like that. So we're really watching to see who's going to piss Angela off enough to get off by her, to get killed. And that is the joy in watching Sleepaway Camp 2. Pamela Springsteen, who is the sister of y'all probably haven't heard of the guy. He's made like an album or two here or there, but he's not really that famous. Yeah, like her brother Bruce Springsteen. Yeah, like he's the less famous one. But Pamela Springsteen is the sister of Bruce Springsteen. And yeah, she brings so much to this role because it's very clear she's playing a snarky character who absolutely believes without question she knows better than anybody else. It is her way or the highway. And that's such a welcome change, because you have to think about a lot of these other horror movies that were coming out at the time. Our killers were either mutes, or if they weren't mutes, they weren't too bright, okay? Like even Freddy, the idea of Freddy Krueger is that like you can't really outsmart him. Basically, you have to get him out of the dream world, and if you can get him out of the dream world, you have a chance to actually live. If you can't get him out of the dream world, then you're kind of fucked at that point, because he's going to own you. And he always had those constraints. Angela doesn't have those constraints. Like, we're very much led to believe that, hey, no matter what, Angela is the smartest person in this room, so it's all about whether or not you can get away from her, because you're not going to outsmart her, you're not going to overpower her, like, you're not going to win this fight. As much as they portray Angela to be like this meek and fragile young woman, like, Angela's very capable. She's dangerous as hell, and we get to see that just amongst like the variety of people that she kills in this movie, that Angela is a very, very dangerous person. And that is so enjoyable to see, because with some of these people that she kills, you would look at that and be like, no, there is no possible way this woman's getting away with it, that she's going to murder all these different kind of people, and someone's not going to stab her back, someone's not going to take her out. And Angela can fend for herself, and it's such a welcome change from what we've seen in previous movies, TV shows, things like that. Now, the film pays a lot of homages to things like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, and everything, because it is a very meta slasher film, okay? The idea here, again, there is no mystery. We know our killer, we know our motivation, we know everything that's going on. So they get to play into that a lot by giving us a lot of tropes from a lot of those other horror films and seeing if they play out better here, to where they're really played for comedy more in this than they are in those other films. They're not as serious. There are some brutal death scenes in this. That is the one thing they absolutely just do amazing in the Sleepaway Camp series, is that, man, some of these kids, some of these counselors get off in some very, very creative ways, and absolutely love that about it. Sleepaway Camp's a really enjoyable movie. I think that it's definitely something that people should see if you watch the first one, because I feel you will like this movie night and day way more than you did the original film. Check it out, y'all. It is on Shudder. It's on a lot of our other streaming services as well, too. But that's going to do it for us tonight, folks. We are done talking I Know What You Did Last Summer, Piranha 3D, and Sleepaway Camp 2. We're now going to go ahead and watch Piranha 3D and Sleepaway Camp 2. So get on over to the Facebook page so you can get that link for the watch party and get in to check things out with us, folks. Also, make sure to take a look here at some of our older episodes we have up here as well, too. Folks, we are right at the cusp of 50 episodes. I'm excited for it. We're also right at the cusp of a year. And coming up, it's going to be sometime in July, we are going to do an all-nighter. Yes, stolen from my friends at the Silver Screen Breakdown here. We are going to put together an all-night watch party where we're going to start in the evening. We're going to order some pizza, have some drinks. We're just going to watch a bunch of shit together, y'all. It's going to be a lot of fun. More details on that coming up soon. But I appreciate y'all tuning in. Just to let you know again, I am T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.